Welcome to part two. We're still talking about marriage and all those sorts of things.
Yes. In the first part, we talked about preparing for marriage, how that is the most important part of having a great marriage from the start. And make sure you go and listen to that before you listen to this one, because that is a precursor to this episode. So now we're going to get into before we were talking about pre-marriage preparation. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what are some really good things that you can do once you are married that will help the beginning of your marriage be amazing.
Once you're married?
Yes, once you're married. So, for me, I already mentioned this in the last episode, but for me, marriage was, it was a really big change. It was kind of like one of those things that, just naturally, happened, and it didn't feel like, boom, now I'm married. But it was a really big change, because I did go from living with my parents and having, sharing a room with all my sisters and having, all my siblings around, lots of noise, a big house, whatever.
Also, she's very spoiled because we moved literally like 4 minutes away.
Yeah.
And we go to her parents.
Well, yeah, that was one of the things I was going to say.
It's
like, so I came from, like being, under my dad and my parents to, just living with an old man in a tiny apartment.
I'm 25, by the way.
And he's old. I'm only 20.
You were 19 when,
Child
no, you were
bride,
18
basically.
when we met. She was 18. I was like, let me get this 18.
Yeah. But so that was a big change, but at the same time, like Andre said, we literally live like 5 minutes away. If you don't get the light, then it's shorter. And even my grandparents, they live in the same neighborhood as us, basically. Is that? Yeah, they live in the same neighborhood as us. We are able to go to either of their houses like anytime we want. And so that has definitely helped. I think it would be different if we had like moved far away, but thankfully,
who knows what it would be like.
Who knows?
But I know that one thing you have to do, one tip, is to let go of all expectations. I mean, there are certain things you have to do, but I wouldn't call them like an expectation. You know what I mean? Like husband leadership, or you know what I mean? That sort of thing I wouldn't call that really an expectation. I'm talking about things in a daily practical sense of if something doesn't happen, you deal with it in the moment, but you don't think about like, whatever this is going to be,
Well, one of the things they tell you, and by they I mean everybody who gives you marriage advice, is to make sure that you talk about your expectations before you get married. And the way Andre and I go about it is not putting expectations on another person anyways, because if you do, then when they don't fulfill the thing you're expecting them to do, you will be very disappointed. You will get frustrated. That's how disagreements and arguments happen. So, I mean, we did talk a little bit about, like, did we even talk about, like, we knew that I was probably going to mainly cook and
we
clean,
talked
like
about
be the homemaker, basically.
We talked about it for sure, but it wasn't like, this is what you're going to do.
I expect you to do this.
This is what you're going to do. It was like, listen, like it's going to be your responsibility to cook, you know? Doesn't mean I'm not going to cook.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean, and like, but all the typical like housewife things as like, that's like what I'm thinking. And she was like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, me too. I mean, and then she would ask me, I know at one point she was like, if needed be, like, because I asked her, like, is this something you think about? Like, what do you think about this? And then she would say, well, yeah, I agree with that. And then I'd be like, cool, keep dating, And then one time she asked me, like, if we really, like, were in financial trouble, like, would you mind getting a second job? And I was like, no, not at all, I would do it. And she was like, oh, ding,
Husband material. Yeah. And the other thing, this is kind of like a side note to that, is like just because your spouse doesn't do, this is something that I had to learn, but I kind of like, okay, I need to remember like his motivations or intentions. Like just because your spouse doesn't do something does not make them lazy or like, because I think a lot of times when our spouse doesn't do something that we expect them to do, or that we just expect them to know, like read your brain, then we're like, that person is so lazy, that person is this and that. A lot of times, like one important thing to do is to like give your spouse the benefit of the doubt.
Yes,
Because
for sure.
a lot of times they are not really doing anything to spite you. They're just trying to do something different than what you have in your mind that you thought they should do. Like, or they just forget, or they just genuinely don't think about it. So give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. And the other thing is kind of like off this same thing, like, you know, we do believe in gender roles. Like, we do believe that the man should be the main provider and the leader and the protector. And I am supposed to, you know, follow him in that. And, you know, I care for the children when they're, well, of course, I mean, he'll care for the children too. But, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like,
You take care of the children.
Take care of the children.
This is a good just example. Whenever, it's not to say that she can't work, but she can't. It's like an option for her. You know, it's not to say that I can't take care of the child, but it's an option for me. It's like most of the time it's going to fall on her responsibility. You know, most of the time when it comes to provision, actually all the time when it comes to provision, it's me. And that doesn't mean that she can't work. That doesn't mean she can't help out with this and this and that, whatever. She's going to want to, just like I want to help out. But it's just different roles, and we help in different ways.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we get so caught up in like stressing about, okay, you need to figure out like before you get married, like who's going to take out the trash and
who's going to get the sock and fold it.
Exactly.
Who folds the socks and who folds the t-shirts, you know?
Yeah. And then you get frustrated because the other person didn't do whatever. And something that I had to learn to do, take upon myself, and not just because I do see myself as a homemaker. Like, I really do, you know, want to be the one to do the cooking and cleaning, the majority of it, because that frees up Andre to be able to do things like pay our bills and make the most of the money to pay our bills. And something that I just had to do, and that I think everybody needs to do regardless of the role, or not the role, but like the chore or whatever that they put on somebody, is to realize that you can just do it yourself, because that is part of selflessly serving. So like Andre will go in the kitchen, cook a meal. He'll eat the meal. He will leave dishes and stuff like that all over. And I can either freak out and say, Andre, you made a mess in the kitchen. Or I can just go behind him and clean up the kitchen, because it's just cleaning a kitchen. And it's it goes back to that thing, like, he's not being lazy. Like, he just, like, knowing Andre, he probably just moved on to the next thing. And part of being selfless and loving him in that way is to just go and clean it up. It's not a big deal. The same thing with like the toilet seat, you know, maybe you have a fear of falling in the toilet in the middle of the night, but
Many
even so,
do.
just like put the toilet seat down. Like, it's okay to like do these things
Yeah.
for
it's
the
almost,
other person.
I feel like it's almost an insult to many women to think that they're not smart enough to put the toilet seat down.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I think you're smart enough to put
Like,
the
you
toilet
can
seat
just
down.
put it down. Like, that's part of being selfless. And there are situations too, like for Andre, that he can do the same for me, because it's about like what?
No, it's just
I'm
funny.
not talking about like serving.
No, it's just funny because it's like so true that I mean, I don't want to go into examples, but I mean, Sully knows the many examples that we have to go through in which I'm just like, I can't get frustrated over that, you know?
Yeah.
It's just the way she is, and like I know she's not doing it to hurt me or anything.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that sometimes, and probably the same for her, Satan is gonna tell you right away, like, look at him, he didn't do this or he did that,
He gonna
and you're
try.
her, you know, and then you could either believe the thought or just realize that it's not of your own thought, and it's just Satan trying to deceive you and plant a seed of bitterness and resentment against your spouse. And so when Zoe sometimes does things, like Satan immediately is like, and then I'm like, wait a minute, she's not doing this for me, you know, and I don't have to believe the lie that I'm being fed right now. And so then I just relax. I'm like, okay, that's fine, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. But yeah, the sinful part of that is when you get frustrated and angry and you're like, they should be doing this. Like, they should be the ones doing this because we, like, talked about them, you know, doing this or that or whatever. And then, you know, you're sinning, and that's of course, that's wrong. The other thing is to help within that newlywed stage when you first get married. Let's see. Of course, I think we already talked about, like, letting the small things go. I think that kind of goes, like, hand in hand, you know, like he leaves the toilet seat up. Okay, just put it down. Don't say, you always leave the toilet seat up. Something that I think is really interesting is making sure that you have boundaries within your marriage from other people.
Don't touch.
Don't touch.
Don't touch me. I tell, like, I have that boundary with Soli all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't touch me.
Yeah, right.
Is that?
I touch you all the time.
Anyways.
But, yeah, I think it's really important. I think
boundaries with other people you're talking
about. Yeah, we could do probably an entire podcast on this. I think that'd be really fun about, like, friendships, like guy-girl friendships within marriage. I think that'd be a good podcast topic. But for now, just making sure you have those boundaries, distancing yourself from friends of the opposite gender as you, and being willing to let them go, hold them at arm's length. One of the things Andre and I do is make sure that we talk often about each other if we are with friends of the opposite gender, and making sure, you know, if there are, like, one-on-one conversations, like, online, that the other person knows. Like, usually it'd be, like, you know, somebody replies to an Instagram story or something. So,
yeah, let's get real. This is just DMs.
Yeah,
this
nothing
Twitter,
like, you know, not getting deep unless, you know, Andre does have people reach out to him a lot that are, like, struggling with certain things. And, like, if it's a girl thing, you know, just being, like, very curious. Have you had that happen within our marriage yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've had girls reach out to me, and the way I treat them now is so different than the way I treated them when I was single, because, you know, someone will be like, oh, like, I don't know what to do. You know, a girl will message me and ask me, you know, what do you think I should do? Because I'm dating this guy.
I'll tell you what you should do. Not much my husband.
You know, she'll say, I'm struggling because, let's say, he doesn't have a job and he's playing too many video games, or whatever. I don't know what to do. And then in the past, I might have been friendlier. I might have been like, oh, like, tell me about it. Maybe, like, we can Skype about it or FaceTime or whatever. Nowadays, I'm just like, okay, tell me what you need, and then she'll say, well, this is what's happening, and I'll give her my honest thoughts right back, and, you know, be cordial, but
and it's never something that's, like, hidden or private. Like, I mean, maybe I think you've had like a like between guys, he won't usually tell me like
I won't want to
all
tell
their
because,
business. But like if
yeah.
it's a girl, then he'll probably. So like if you're having some issues and you go to talk to Andre one-on-one about it, just know he's not the
Yeah.
only one who knows.
Yeah, especially if it's a girl,
Yeah.
I will most likely tell. If it's a little crude or something, I might leave out some details, but it's not like it's a secret from her at all, you know, because
Yeah.
there's never that barrier between whatever I'm doing, and Sully can't go into it, you know, because she's part of my whole life.
Yeah.
But I yeah, when someone talks to me, I just, you know, I'm more cordial when a girl talks to me, and it's private. I remember one time actually, I had this friend from the past, and we were just friends, but she was coming into town. We weren't married yet. We were just dating, or maybe, yeah, I think we were just dating, and this girl just reached out to me, and you know, she's very good looking girl, and she reached out to me and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be in town. I'm gonna be visiting like where you're at right now, and I want to get together. So just like hit me up." And she like I think a couple times, and I didn't even respond to her, because and it's not because you know she was my friend before, but I had my friendship with her was like friends, but maybe there will be something there in the future, you know? It's kind of like you're
That's why
both
she
like
was hitting you up.
exactly. You know, why would she want to hit it and
Why would
just being
anybody
real.
want to hit you up?
Exactly.
Unless they want to date you.
But it was definitely I could tell that it was like one of those things that like, hey, I'm gonna be in town, like we should go like out together and whatever. And I didn't want to just say, oh well, I'm dating this girl now. Why don't you come with us? It's awkward. I have friends like that. You know, I have friends that are girls that I'm like, oh, and then I bring Sully into it,
And we hang out
well,
all
now
together.
we're all friends.
Yeah,
You know,
now I have a new friend.
but it's different. It's a different thing when there's a girl that like you know there was something, and then she's like, yeah, and
Yeah.
so definitely there are girls that I have literally just flat out ignored, like ignored completely. That maybe we were acquaintances before, or we were friends before, not too close, but I just say like no because I don't want to leave any room for anything.
Yeah. And like for me, I don't really have that kind of situation. Like I don't really have like close guy friends. I mean, I do have some guy friends, but they're basically all friends with Andre. But, you know, I do get hit on. I just make it, you know, apparent and obvious that I am, you know, married. I am taken. I think for girls that can also mean like making sure you're just wearing your clothes.
You're wearing your clothes.
Wearing your clothes, like being modest. That's what I'm
Okay.
talking about.
I was like, I hope that girls are wearing their clothes.
Yeah, because like, you know, now I'm somebody's wife. I mean, I didn't before, but you know, when you're somebody's wife, you need to make sure that you are just dignified and modest, and you know, don't give anybody the opportunity to get the wrong impression from what you're doing. Like, even if you're not doing anything, but they could take it. And of course, you don't have control over what other people think, but you know, that, you know, just little things like that. And in the other area of boundaries, what you talk about in your marriage, like making sure whatever you say and whatever you share is something that your spouse would be okay with you sharing.
That's a big one.
This, for me, like, the times, like, we really don't argue that much, but the times that we have argued and I've been really upset, and if I, like, just, you know, leave, like, go over to my parents or something, I make sure that I don't just blast the whole thing. And I know they would give really good advice, but just in those moments, I'm not really in a good place to talk about this in the way that I should.
Exactly. So glad.
And it's just really important that you don't just go and air all your dirty laundry. You know, if the person is like, yeah, this is like an appropriate time, but you know, generally it's not, and that will just help keep things between your marriage private. You know, a
Yes.
lot of things are being shared. You know, you're having fun. You're like seeing a lot of people, and just that's really awesome. And it also helps you, like, for the women, you know, to not be disrespectful. That's another huge thing. Don't ever talk bad about your spouse
Yes.
to other people. That's another really important thing.
Yeah.
For girls especially, it's easy to just go out
I
and
know.
gossip and share like all the things that he did. And I like, even if people are like talking about guys, whatever, and like I know, like, okay, Andre has done that thing, or Andre, you know, whatever, I make sure not to say that, just to be respectful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very important point, because I think a lot of people excuse venting. That's their excuse. Like they say, "Oh, I need someone to vent."
Yeah, I
No,
need
you
to
don't need someone to
vent.
vent. You need
Your
to
husband
relax.
is the person that you share, that you
Listen,
talk
if
about
you
these
are
things with.
frustrated with your spouse, the first thing you should do is never to vent to anyone. I
'Cause
know
you
that's
will,
very
yeah.
countercultural. People tell you all the time, "Oh, they need someone to vent." No.
Yeah.
What you need is to calm down, and then after you realize where your emotions are at and they catch up to your logic, then you can go and talk to someone. Well, I was feeling like this because this person did this. But in that moment, you're just gonna you're gonna berate
You're
your
just gonna
spouse
bring
to
them
that other
down,
person, and the
yeah.
other person is gonna completely change the way that they look at your spouse just
Yeah.
because you said that.
Because even if that person, like, when you and your spouse go, you kiss and make up, the other people, the person that you share that with,
They don't
that
see
could
that.
forever tarnish the way that they view your spouse for the
Yes.
worst. For the worst or
The worst.
worst. I don't know. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Even when you're dating, I think that's even important. That's
Yeah.
something that I learned
That is so true.
in the dating period. And it's hard, especially as a girl, because you just want to vent to everybody. You want to tell your sister, you want to get like comfort or whatever, your mom. And it's best to just wait till that moment has passed.
Yes.
And if
God
it's
has got you.
appropriate. If
Let me
it's
say,
appropriate to
God
bring it
has
up.
got you. Bring it to God first. Don't let your emotion tell you that you need to bring it to some other person first, because they're the ones that are going to carry all your burden. Allow God to be the first one, your first option to carry that burden. And once it has passed, go talk to someone else if you need to. But never, in that moment where your emotions are really high, never allow that moment to tarnish the way that the other people are going to look at your spouse forever.
Yeah, and you know, that's just one of the things you really need to learn early on in marriage, especially when you do go through those things or have those moments that makes you feel like your whole marriage is falling apart, when really it's not, and you just need to forgive and, you know, move on from that moment. The other thing, so what do you think about the word compromise, Andre? Tell us how you really feel.
I think it's an interesting word that people have used to corrupt the way that a husband would deal with her wife and vice versa. Because what people say compromise is like whoever is best at crying, or whoever is best at like making it seem like a big deal, usually is going to get the better end of the stick. And that's not really a compromise. Like, I'll give you an example. If, let's say, a husband says, "You know what? I want to go watch. I want to go watch Batman."
And then slowly starts crying and says,
Yeah, and then the wife says, "I want to go watch. Well, I want to go watch a romantic movie or whatever," and then now he's like, "No, I want to watch this." But if she starts to cry and she does like, "Oh, you never want to watch like romantic movies anymore. I don't even know if you love me," and starts to cry, who's gonna get the better end of the deal? It's probably gonna be the girl. And then you compromised, right?
like, we always do what you like, now we'll do what I like.
Yeah, no, it's not that, guys. This should be like obvious. That's not really a compromising. I think it's a word that has really been used to completely corrupt the way that you should deal with husband and wife. You just figure out what you like, and sometimes you come to
Yeah.
agreements, and that may be a compromise, but not in the way that we've been taught compromise is.
Yeah. I agree. Like, we, you know, like, before you get married, that's a word that's thrown around a lot. And that was one of those pieces of marriage advice that we definitely took with a grain of salt, because, you know, like, I didn't really see it before, like, you hear these things and you're just like, oh, well, people say, like, communication is the most important, so it must be the most important, or, which is, that would be a really good
Podcast.
good podcast. Or, like, compromise. Well, you have to compromise to have a good marriage, right? And it's like, what does that really mean? Like, what does compromise really look like? And for us, we don't use that word. We don't look at it. I don't know. Like, for us, things just happen. Like, we don't
Naturally.
view it in, like, well,
Like
we
a
always did it
business
his
deal.
way. Like,
Because marriage is not a business deal.
people make it seem like a business deal.
I know.
Like, you need, the key to really good work relationships is communication. Like, marriage is not work. Marriage is different. And for me, I like to think of it in terms of, like, selflessness.
Yeah.
And not compromise, because selflessness is actually a biblical and, like, a
Yeah, a good value.
godly thing to be. Compromise is just like,
It's fluff. It's a little bit fluff.
yeah, it is. And when you are in those situations where it's like, okay, are we going to do this thing or that thing, or whatever situation is where you need to compromise, if you have to channel your inner Holy Spirit selflessness, and that's what's gonna really make it work. And for me as the woman, like we've mentioned before, I believe that Andre is the leader. So that means a lot of times I have to do that. I have to remember to be selfless, because a lot of the times, not every single time, and it's not about like, oh, I got it my way. That's not what I'm saying at all. But a lot of times it is like, okay, Andre said this. I need to trust his judgment and know that the way he's leading our family is better than if we tried to find some sort of compromise between what I want and he wants. And that's not to ever say that we don't do anything that I want or whatever, but it's
That's
just
for sure.
not... but it's just not like in those terms. Like, if we go to watch a movie and Andre knows that I want to watch a movie that is not like action and bloody stuff.
Tell him the movie.
Andre took me to see Downton Abbey, the movie.
It was boring. And I didn't have a bad attitude at all about it.
He didn't. I was kind of unimpressed too. I definitely like the series better, but that's a different
Topic.
But like, like Andre will sometimes, like, okay, she wants to watch like a girly happy movie. She doesn't want to go to sleep and have nightmares and be depressed at the end of it. So then he's just like, okay, well, let's watch this kind of movie. And it's like, I think selflessness is just so important, because once you, and this is not me saying that I'm perfect at this at all, but like we, in every single one of these areas, if you are just selfless and you don't get caught up and hung up on these things, then you won't get frustrated or like have like resentment towards your spouse, because you're not taking it personally and you're saying, it's not about me and it's not about what I want.
Totally. That was really good, Sully.
Thanks. And I think one of the last things is, I have two things. One is just to remember to have fun. They one of the things they talk about is like continue dating your spouse and like just have fun. I think a lot of people are scared of that moment when the honeymoon phase is over and like real life hits. And I honestly have no idea like if we are in the honeymoon phase or not. Like our marriage is just super amazing. Like we have a baby on the way. Like everything, I couldn't tell you if we were still in the honeymoon phase or not.
Yeah.
But, like just continue having fun with your spouse. Like flirt with them. Like, I don't know why you have to like be in the honeymoon phase to still like be attracted to your spouse, to still want to go do fun things with your spouse.
Yeah. And I think that's a very big point for girls, for men to know about girls, is make sure that you let them, or like make fun of them. I'm just kidding.
Well, you do make fun
I
of
do
me.
make fun of Sully a lot, but make marriage fun for your wife, because that song "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" is so true.
Girls just wanna have
As long as you, if you make their life fun, that's pretty much it.
And it's fun. It's fun
You just-
too. Like Andre loves having fun. He is. I would say you're more adventurous than me, and we just like yeah, like we just remember. Like you have to remember that your spouse is a gift. Like you didn't deserve your spouse. You didn't earn your spouse. Like God gave you your spouse for a specific purpose, and you are, if you do have a spouse, like you are so blessed. There are so many people that would love to get married, and there are so many people that, you know, maybe they've lost their spouse or their marriage has just ended in shambles. And just remembering that life with your spouse is a gift, like being able to even like, you know, be intimate with your spouse is a gift. Just to have somebody that you can go out and like date and have fun with, like that's a gift. Like you don't know what could happen, or that could not be your life.
Yeah, that's so true. If you think about, if that's the attitude you go about in your marriage, it should be very, very simple. If you just say, you know what a gift. You wake up and you're like, what a gift. And Sully sometimes thinks that is a little funny, because like so many times I'll just be like,
He
so
always does it in
amazing.
the pool. Every
always
time
like,
he's swimming, he's like, life is amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's like, how could you not love life, you know? And just an optimistic attitude about, because it's not about you. It's not about the way that you do things. It's about the way that God has done things for you, and he already has. So you don't have to worry about anything.
Like you're free.
You don't have to do it.
You
Yeah,
can have
exactly.
joy,
You're free.
and you can have fun with your spouse, even, you know, 50 years into marriage. My grandparents just celebrated like 54 years of marriage or something.
beautiful.
And they still, you know, they have fun. They like go on adventures, they go on vacations. They, you know, like you can tell like they love each other. And yes, they're old, but you know, that isn't something that has to end.
Yeah,
You know, even after the honeymoon phase is over.
that's for
And
sure.
that will just make marriage fun and enjoyable.
Yeah. Especially when you don't have children yet, I think it's very important that you just go on about your
Yeah,
day and have fun.
And take
you know what I mean?
advantage of like being able to just like go on dates.
I tell so
randomly
many
and things
times,
like
I
that.
tell Sully, it's not a big deal. Just
He
relax.
says that all the time.
It's not a big deal. Just relax. You know, something goes wrong, roll with the punches. It's not a big deal. And if you go on about life that way, it's so beautiful. You just realize, wow, this life is so amazing. And you don't have to worry about every single little detail of life. You just go on. And so the same thing, you know, sometimes when you have disagreements, not a big deal. Just figure it out. We can't figure it out now. We'll figure it out later. As opposed to, this person wants to kill me, or I want to kill this person,
Yeah.
or, you know, my wife. So if you just go on about your marriage with that attitude, especially when you start out without children, you'll have a really good foundation for whenever children come. You'll know your roles. When something happens, you have a disagreement, you just go on about your day. You figure it out. You can't figure it out now. You figure it out later. And it's not a big deal, really.
No. And don't overwhelm yourself or freak out about whether or not your marriage is like perfect or what you thought it was going to be. You know, like take it day by day. Like neither of you have been married before.
Hopefully.
Well, yeah, more than likely you haven't been married before if you're a newlywed. And this is like new territory for both of you. So you really have to like give yourself grace, and you know, like if you do something wrong, like see where you're wrong, but don't like beat yourself up about it. Don't like think like, oh, I'm a terrible wife, or you know, like, oh, like what a terrible move, I'm a bad husband, whatever.
That's another point too, is not to judge yourself Definitely don't judge yourself for whatever happens in marriage.
Yeah.
When you make a mistake,
Definitely acknowledge that mistake.
yeah, what I was going to say is when you make a mistake, once you see that you make a mistake, immediately apologize, say, I'm sorry, and then you go on. Don't dwell on the mistakes that you make because that is not of God. That is of Satan trying to give you that judgment, and then you can't even move on from the mistake you made.
Or
God
wrong.
says, listen, I already paid for that mistake. I already paid for your sin. When you're wrong, once you see that you're wrong, you move on from it, and you say, you know what, I'm sorry, and then you move on. And when you forgive and when you realize you're wrong, just like that, you're able to come back to reality, and you're able to go back to being
And the
married.
same when when your spouse wrongs you.
Forgive.
Forgive. And the marriage, like if your parents have a great marriage, the marriage that they have, they've known each other probably for many, many years. They've been married for so long. They've had a long time to, get to that point. And, our marriage, of course, is like we've said, is like really awesome. So far, so good. We love it. We love being married. But don't try, like, you don't have to juggle all the things. You don't have to do everything.
Take
you
it
don't
day by
have
day.
to. Yeah, exactly. Take it day by day. Like, you don't have to have a house immediately. You don't have to prepare the most elaborate meals
For Thanksgiving or something.
Yeah, exactly. You just take it day by day. And
you build little by little. You build little ladders, and you save your money. You build little things, and you work on things you need to work on.
Yeah, you just better yourself every day. Like, God will shape you and form you. And I think the most important thing is just not letting your marriage crumble from the inside out. Not letting each other. The devil wants to pit us against each other. He wants us to resent each other and to just tear each other down. And you have to realize that's what he's trying to do. Whenever, no matter what happens, like no matter what a disagreement or like an argument is about, no matter what happens, like if you are fighting constantly or if your spouse is intentionally doing things to spite you, which I'm sure happened, remember that is ultimately the devil trying to tear your marriage apart. And you have to remember that you are a team and that you just can't let that happen.
It's not a competition. That's a big thing too. I think most people think of a relationship, either dating, engagement, or marriage, they see it as a competition. Like who makes more money, and who does this better, and who does that better. And who wins
That's
the arguments
selfish.
or whatever. It's not a competition. If you do it God's way, it's really simple. The man leads the wife. He protects her. He loves her. It's simple, And then the wife does all the things. I don't know about that, but
Yeah, but the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he wants to do that with not just your marriage, but with all of marriage. And I think that's why the world is the way it is, in its attitudes towards marriage, in the divorce rates, and all of these things. And I think for us, it's really important that that doesn't happen within. Things might come from outside and try to come against us, but then we use that as an opportunity to draw closer to each other and closer to God in those, and not let those things come against our marriage either.
That's for sure. That's good.
So I think, that's it. Don't tear each other apart.
Yes.
You can do it. You don't have to suffer through your first year of marriage.
Yeah. That's some good thoughts, guys. I would encourage you to listen to this over again if this is your first time listening to it. Listen to it over, because I think so many things that we've said here today could be very helpful for you guys. If you're married, newlyweds, if you are engaged, or if you're just dating, especially if you're just dating.
Married.
If you're just dating, if you're not dating but you want to date and get married at some point, definitely listen to this and think about it, and you know, go home or go to whoever, talk about it with us too. We'd love to talk to you about it.
Yes. Make sure to comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube. Let us know what you think, like if there's anything you disagreed with or if there's anything that you didn't fully understand. We would love to have a conversation with you about that. We
Yes.
love disagreement, like not disagreements, but we love engaging with people that
Trying to
have
figure out the
differing viewpoints.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you disagree, like, let us know. Obviously, like, if you're nasty and rude and mean, like,
Yeah, as long as you have an
yeah,
cordial
be
conversation.
kind. If you agreed, if you love this, let us know and share it.
Yes.
Share
Like the
it.
video and share it. It helps us out a
Yes,
ton,
please.
especially as soon as we post it. If you guys do that, it helps us out a ton with the
And
algorithm
follow
and
us
stuff.
on any of whatever platform you're listening to. If you're not listening or watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to those platforms as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching.
Yes, that
May
is-
God bless you
yes.
guys. May God bless your relationships now or future relationships, marriages, and also families, we hope.
Yes, peace, love,
Peace, love, and chocolate.
That was good. We did two episodes at once.